noastre, onorați invitați și prieteni, doamnelor și domnilor! Bine ați venit la evenimentul lansării naționale a Raportului de Dezvoltare Umană pentru 2019 cu titlul Dincolo de venituri, dincolo de valorile medii, dincolo de azi, inegalități în dezvoltarea umană în secolul 21. Raportul de dezvoltare umană este o publicație emblematică a Programului Națiunilor Unite pentru Dezvoltare, care reflectă tendințele de dezvoltare în 189 de țări, inclusiv Moldova. Acesta are scopul de a identifica și de a examina inegalitățile nu doar ca și venituri, dar și non-venituri, care amenință dezvoltarea durabilă a țărilor și cum pot fi ameliorate efectele negative ale acestora asupra bunăstării populației. Lansarea de astăzi are loc de Ziua Mondială a Justiției Sociale, cu genericul Eliminarea inegalităților pentru realizarea justiției sociale. Raportul de dezvoltare umană pentru 2019 este lansat la Chișinău de către domnul Ion Chicu, prim-ministrul Republicii Moldova, și doamna Aghi Veres, directoarea adjunctă pentru Europa și Asia Centrală a Programului Națiunilor Unite pentru Dezvoltare. Vă amintesc că evenimentul este organizat de PNUD Moldova și poate fi urmărit live pe pagina de Facebook a PNUD Moldova. Și acum, cu permisiunea dumneavoastră, îl invit la microfon pe domnul Ion Chicu, prim-ministru al Republicii Moldova.
Stimată doamnă Aghiveres, stimate domn Simeon Springhet, stimată doamnă Al-Khatib, excelențe, stimați prieteni, reprezentanți ai comunității donatorilor și ai partenerilor de dezvoltare, reprezentanți ai autorităților publice centrale și ai cercurilor academice, dar bineînțeles și ai societății civile. Am o deosebită plăcere să vă salut în numele Guvernului Republicii Moldova la lansarea Raportului Global de Dezvoltare Umană 2019, astăzi, 20 februarie, de Ziua Mondială a Justiției Sociale, aici, la noi, la Chișinău. Dincolo de venituri, dincolo de valorile medii, dincolo de azi, inegalități în dezvoltarea umană ale secolului 21. Este titlul acestui raport ce urmează a fi prezentat și vine să ne aducă noi dimensiuni și noi abordări de măsurare a progresului de dezvoltare, dincolo de doar creșterea economică, dincolo doar de statistici seci. În era internetului și accesului simplu la volume imense de date, inegalitatea a devenit un generator de dispoziții sociale. Republica Moldova simte direct efectele acestor dispoziții. Oamenii au posibilitatea să cunoască despre oportunitățile existente în alte țări și dreptul la circulație liberă le oferă posibilitatea să aleagă unde să trăiască și unde să muncească. Înțelegem bine ce mișcă cu oamenii și acceptăm fără pretenții dreptul lor de a alege să trăiască acolo unde au acces la infrastructuri mai bune, unde au o alegere mai mare de locuri de muncă mai calitative, unde sunt grădinițe și școli mai moderne, servicii medicale mai sigure și un nivel mai înalt de securitate publică. Înțelegem aceste fenomene. În cazul nostru, trebuie să ținem cont nu doar de inegalitățile sociale, trebuie să ținem cont de inegalitatea între Republica Moldova și țările dezvoltate. Inegalitatea de oportunități care determină decizia oamenilor de a alege unde își construiesc viața. Pentru a schimba starea lucrurilor, pentru a reduce din inegalitatea între Republica Moldova și statele dezvoltate europene, am elaborat un plan de investiții publice masive în infrastructură în 2020 și în următorii ani și am schițat un plan până în 2023. Vom investi masiv în infrastructura rutieră pentru a crește confortul accesibilității în toate raioanele țării și pentru a spori atractivitatea investițională. Vom investi în apeducte și rețele de canalizare, vom ilumina localitățile, vom aduce investitori și vom construi platforme industriale în toate raioanele țării, pentru a aduce locuri de muncă stabile și bine plătite aproape de casele oamenilor. Într-o formă comprimată, acesta este răspunsul nostru la problema inegalităților pe care le confruntă astăzi Republica Moldova. E firesc că oamenii vor să trăiască mai bine și e firesc să poată alege unde să trăiască. Trebuie să transformăm Moldova într-o destinație atractivă pentru viață. Cunoaștem că PNUD Moldova a realizat și lucrarea analitică Inegalități urbane și rurale în Moldova, care abordează diverse forme ale inegalităților existente, un accent aparte fiind pus pe studierea inegalităților emergente specifice mediului urban. Neapărat vom ține cont de recomandările menite să reducă inegalitățile existente, precum și riscurile altor inegalități prezentate în Raportul Global de Dezvoltare Umană. Împărtășim viziunea noastră cu partenerii de dezvoltare, pentru că, având suportul dumneavoastră, vom reuși mai rapid să realizăm reducerea inegalității între Republica Moldova și statele dezvoltate. Cu asistența dumneavoastră vom reuși mai curând să convingem tinerii să aleagă Moldova. Contăm pe suportul PNUD și al altor agenții în elaborarea unei generații noi de politici pentru realizarea cu succes a Agendei 2030 de dezvoltare durabilă. Vreau să urez tuturor participanților la eveniment discuții productive și concluzii eficiente pentru acțiunile noastre ulterioare comune. Vă mulțumesc!
Domnule prim-ministru, vă mulțumim. În continuare, în fața domniilor voastre vine directoarea adjunctă a PNUD Moldova pentru Europa și Asia Centrală, doamna Aghi Veres, oficială a PNUD de nivel înalt, se află în vizită oficială în Republica Moldova în perioada 20-21 februarie, pentru a discuta progresul Republicii Moldova în realizarea obiectivelor de dezvoltare durabilă și va reitera suportul continuu al PNUD în domeniile cheie de dezvoltare națională. Doamna Veres.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Kiku, UN Resident Coordinator, and Your Excellencies. First of all, thank you very much for hosting this event and introducing us to the launch of the Human Development Report and to start this policy dialogue, as I really believe that this event is just a start of a policy dialogue that we can look into more details about how to advance the development goals in Moldova itself. So with that, I'm really delighted to welcome you all on behalf of the United Nations Development Programme to launch the 2019 Global Human Development Report, which is focusing on inequalities, and we want to start this discussion on what this means in the context of Moldova. When the first Human Development Report appeared, it really captured the attention of the global community, because this was the first time that we had a different way of looking at development beyond income and looking and seeing the world in different kinds of measurements where people were in the center of development. This year's report is actually a new of its kind, because now we are pushing the boundaries of what it means to look at human development, and through the analysis accelerate the thought leadership and drive a conversation on the future of development in this world where the change of pace is really at an unprecedented level. Its topic is also a very pertinent one. An increasing number of people across the political spectrum, across the globe, believe that income equality really should be reduced. The report also highlights that inequalities in human development, including health and education, are even more profound. Despite many people having stepped above the minimum floors in human development and remarkable progress against extreme deprivations, systemic inequalities unfortunately still remain deeply damaging to our society, and many are at risk for being left behind. This report asserts that while inequality in basic capabilities, such as reducing infant mortality, access to education and health services, and basic technology are narrowing, but at the same time, a new generation of inequalities is opening up. As the world changes, new inequalities magnified by technology and climate change are set to permeate an already weakened social fabric. Examples include services that fail to address, for example, non-communicable diseases, adequate standards and access to secondary and tertiary education, the digital divide of those outside the information economy, and the rising threat of climate change and social systems. So we are talking about an inequality that's much more about quality than quantity of access to various services. Therefore, inequality is not just about how much someone earns compared to their neighbor. It's really about unequal distribution of wealth and power, the entrenched social and political norms and policies that inherently fail to address the emerging challenges. Increasingly, these issues are bringing people onto the streets in cities and towns across the world, and the triggers that will do so in the future unless something changes. So we need to go beyond income. We need to understand what is really driving inequality. This matters, as the 2019 Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index that we look at today sets out the unequal distribution of education, health, and living standards that are systemic in countries, and they are affecting the progress in the countries that we are working in. 20% of human development progress was lost through inequalities in 2018. So the next step is to look beyond averages and look beyond today, as this Human Development Report argues, with new analysis, ideas, and policy options to get to the bottom of the problem while helping nations to grow their economies and improve human development, options that complement traditional income-based responses such as tax and transfer policies. We have to look beyond averages. While averages can be helpful in telling a larger story, much more detailed information is needed to create policies to tackle inequality effectively. This is true in tackling the multiple dimensions of poverty, in meeting the needs of those being left furthest behind, such as people living with disabilities, and promoting gender equality and empowerment. On gender, for example, based on current trends, it will take 202 years to close the gender gap in economic opportunities alone. At the very time when progress is meant to be accelerating to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, the report's 2019 Inequality Index says that progress is actually slowing. We also need to look beyond today. Some argue that we have entered the age of anxiety. People are worried about their future, particularly under the shadow of the climate crisis and technological transformations in our economies and societies. Developed countries are responsible for the vast majority of cumulative carbon dioxide emissions. Yet, climate change is hitting developing countries the hardest. Policies to tackling the climate crisis can be mismanaged, increasing perceived and actual inequalities for the less well-off, who spend more of their income on energy-intensive goods and services than their richest neighbors. We also need to avoid a new great divergence in our societies driven by artificial intelligence, for example, and other digital technologies. There is historical precedent for technological revolutions to carve deep and persistent inequalities, as took place during the Industrial Revolution. But how do we adapt and use the new technology that's in our hands, and how we can be guided to be a force for the good and address inequalities rather than deepening them? Moldova is not standing aside of these trends. While the country is achieving important positive progress when it comes to the Human Development Index, it is losing around 10% of its human development potential due to various levels of inequalities. This loss is slightly lower as compared to the Europe and Central Asia region, while higher than the region of the EU. Tackling inequalities requires a mix of inclusive policy measures, new partnerships, and above all, new thinking around what really people need to be able to live long, healthy, and productive lives. UNDP is pleased to accompany Moldova for a very long time in developing policy options and responses to these challenges, and now also working closely on the 2030 National Development Strategy for the country. I'm confident that today's discussion will demonstrate that together we are not short of ideas on how to support Moldova's aspirations for becoming a modern and vibrant economy, an inclusive and cohesive society, and at the same time create environmental consciousness conducive to sustainable human development. UNDP is ready to support, together with our partners, this progress, developing policy options and appropriate responses to ensure that Moldova is on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I look forward to our discussions, and as I started my remarks, I also believe that an event like this is just a start to a dialogue, and as UNDP, we will drive the discussions together with our partners to find the ways forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doamnelor și domnilor, a venit momentul să aflăm care sunt principalele concluzii și recomandări ale Raportului de Dezvoltare Umană pentru 2019 și a perspectivelor relevante la nivel național și regional. Pentru aceasta îl invit în fața dumneavoastră pe domnul George Buma, liderul echipei Creștere Inclusivă a PNUD Europa și Asia Centrală.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I need to, just so the translators can hear. So. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Kiku, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to be with you here today to present to you the progress on the Human Development Report for 2019. And I'm hoping, yes, here we are. Today that I'll work through three various perspectives of what I want to present today. Firstly, it's a little bit of a revision on what is the human development paradigm and how do we measure it, and then a little bit on some of the key findings and messages from the Global Human Development Report. And then finally, I'll go through some of the applications to middle-income countries of this region, but also discuss a little bit Moldova's position in relation to the findings of the report. So firstly, a little bit of revision on what human development is, and you heard that it really is a paradigm that goes beyond income, and basically it puts people at the centre of development. In 1990, UNDP released its first human development report, so that's almost 30 years of progress that we have to draw from on using this paradigm. It's basically designed to help support us make the most of our lives, recognising that we all have access and capabilities that are provided and helps us achieve long and healthy lives, access knowledge, and also provide incomes. But this should not be done at the expense of future generations, and increasingly the sustainability of dimensions and the implications on human development are becoming much more apparent. And the Human Development Index is really the measurement that we use, and as was stated previously, this can be measured for, this can be adjusted for inequality. So, to give you an insight into how the index works, basically the index is a composite indicator that's made up of these three components. As I said, opportunities to have a long and healthy life, our ability to access education and understand the knowledge we are provided with, and the ability to maintain living standards and provide income for ourselves and our families. And those are the indicators underneath each of them that are used to measure the index. Therefore, it's a multidimensional indicator that goes beyond income. And as I said, in each of these categories, we can look at the losses that result in human development as a result of inequalities occurring in society. So to move on a little bit to the situation across the region. And basically, many countries are interested to know what their human development ranking is. And, but I think it's important to note that the Human Development Index, it measures long-term trends. It doesn't measure short-term changes, and I think that this is a really important perspective. It also does not often depend on what happens inside a country. It can often be influenced by what happens in other countries and how many countries might be involved in the measurement of Human Development Index. So here we can see Moldova with a score of 0.71 falls within the high human development bracket. Nearby neighbours you can see also in the high human development bracket, and you can see Norway coming in first place and other countries of the region that come in the medium human development bracket. But when we look at this from a historical perspective, we see by comparison to other countries that Moldova had a least favourable starting position in 1990 when we began to measure human development. But all of these countries suffered from a similar trajectory, and basically what we call a lost decade of human development as a result of the transition from state socialism to market-based economies. And this had an extreme effect here in Moldova when we consider issues of hyperinflation and the impact this had on people's disposable income and how that then affected the measurement of human development. We also see that in the period of the financial crisis from 2008 to 2010, there were also some losses as a result of that global phenomenon as well, which has impacted on countries in the region. And when we think about health, welfare, health, income and education, we often think about governance as well. And when we look at the World Bank governance indicators, taking a sample of some countries across the region, we see that both Moldova and Ukraine are probably fairly static in their performance when it comes to governance indicators on this World Bank measure, whereas countries like Georgia are maintaining steady progress on their governance reform issues. And when we look at the sub-indicators we can, that make up to this World Bank ranking, we can see some of the issues in governance that and the performance that Moldova is currently experiencing over the last decade period. So I think it's a relevant question to ask, are governance reforms a key aspect to Moldova's development prospects, and putting human-centred development more at the centre of development planning and government policies. The report puts forward a new framework, recognising that in the 30 years since the Human Development Index was launched, that the world has changed dramatically in that period of time, and we need to consider inequalities in a new development framework. Going beyond income, because income is a measure of how much people have as their disposable income, but what are the processes that lead to people's ability to generate income? These are issues that need to be understood as well. We also need to go beyond averages, because averages will often mask what's happening in a particular country or a particular area, and so understanding the dimensions of that inequality are very important to go just beyond average measures, and I'll discuss this a little bit more in a moment. But I think beyond today is really the newest element of the thinking around human development, and this is recognising that we are going through very fundamental and rapid changes which are catching up to development very quickly. And you heard some of them referenced around technology, the influence of technology, the influence of climate change. And what the report actually shows is that people that are being born today will carry these inequalities through their life. And these will be exacerbated by many of these new phenomena that we're now having to deal with in development. So the question becomes, how do we close the gap for those that are being born now who will bear the brunt of many of these changes in the future? So when we look at beyond income, when we look at income measures, we understand the Gini coefficient as an overall measure of how a country is performing on income distribution. Now, we see that the Scandinavian countries are doing quite well because the lower the score, the more equal income distribution is. And when we look at Moldova's score, we see Moldova is actually doing better than some Scandinavian countries. But we know for a fact that this measure, which is also common to quite a number of other countries in this region as well, is very misleading. And we know that many people in these countries do not feel that their income distribution is as equal as it is in Scandinavia. Many people respond in surveys that we undertake that they feel their income distribution is not equal, and it feels a little bit more like Russia or China maybe, or some other countries that are perhaps not as developed as Scandinavian countries. And one of the reasons that we cannot trust this measure is because when we look at the way that it's measured, we see that it focuses largely on the middle class, which is where most of the results would be coming. But yet, when we look at the survey methodology, it generally underestimates the tails, both who is wealthy and who is poor, and therefore it actually does not give an accurate picture of income inequality. And so we find that there's very much an undercounting as well. And it's very much a problem in countries in transition because there's high levels of informality as well. And when there's large informal sectors and a lack of public trust in institutions, there's often a lot of underreporting that goes on in the surveys that are used to measure the Gini coefficient. And also, when we look at the relatively weak statistical capacities that might exist in some of the countries, we see that using income measures is perhaps not a good and robust measure for policy development that we might want to use. So we've looked at this in UNDP at the regional perspective as well, and we recognise that there's a need to focus on the middle class much more effectively, to go beyond the Gini coefficients, because we do have good data on what the middle income distribution of incomes actually is, and we can then understand a little bit more of what's happening in particular countries. Now, when we look at the middle class in Moldova, and we define the middle class as those who are between $10 and $100 a day, we see that there has been, between 2004 and 2007, significant growth in the middle class, significant decline in poverty rates, but yet between 2008, since the global financial crisis, we see that this has stagnated quite a little bit. And generally, the middle class is not expanding. What is expanding is what we call the precariat class. These are people who are vulnerable and subject to shocks and may not be accessing the services that are available to them, or they may be suffering from other inequalities. So what we see is that this class is growing, and additionally there's no increase in poverty, which is a good thing, but we do have an increase in vulnerability that's occurring in Moldova at the moment, which leads us to the conclusion that sustainable development is not necessarily about reducing poverty. It's actually about ensuring that these people who are vulnerable are not being left behind in development processes. And I want to focus a little bit on the issue beyond income when it comes to gender inequalities. We see across the region that gaps in women's per capita income is existent across many of the countries. In Moldova, women on average earn 25% less than their male counterparts. In addition, women usually outlive men by 8.5 years. Now, why is this an issue? Obviously, female-headed households and women who are older and lose their spouses who may have been the breadwinner may find themselves in very vulnerable conditions, or may also find themselves falling into poverty later in life. So these are kind of relevant issues that speak to the need to go to beyond income. So the report focuses on on the issues around basic capabilities, which is where a lot of our emphasis has been since the Human Development Brand was released. And this is reflected in a lot of the work that we did around the Millennium Development Goals, where the report highlights that the countries are converging around these basic capabilities. Basically, there's been tremendous progress in these areas where there's significant reductions in infant mortality and maternal mortality. Access to education has improved dramatically around the world, and possession of mobile phones has proliferated in most countries around the world. However, what the report goes on to argue is that there's an increasing divergence between the developed world and the developing world on what it calls enhanced capabilities. And some of these issues around access and quality to affordable health care, issues of non-communicable diseases as they become more prevalent as we have more disposable income, mean that we need to change the way that we drive our health systems and our health policies to ensure that people are not being left behind who are suffering from these non-communicable diseases. In fact, some of the research we've done for Moldova represents that this is one of their primary health challenges going forward in the next 15 years. Access to quality and lifelong education, preparation of jobs for the future. As the digital economy takes hold, as data becomes the new commodity of economic growth, we need to have better education systems, we need to have new skills on the labour market, and this needs to go along with new technology and access to the internet. And we increasingly are beginning to talk about the digital divide that will occur as a result of some of these changes that are happening. So how do we ensure that people are not left outside of this digital divide and the way that the world is changing? And once again, I want to focus a little bit on gender inequalities. And this is some survey data that we have from countries across the region, and you would expect from this graph that we could say that women are more prevalent in tertiary education and they would be better prepared for the future, so you would think. But in reality, when we look at the situation for women in science, technology, engineering and maths, we find their enrolment rates are around a quarter of what men are. So therefore, how well are women being prepared for jobs of the future? And this is something that we need to take into consideration in our support going forward, because we find that generally these will be primarily the jobs that are being created in the future, where the digital economy will take much greater hold than in other areas. So, to come to some key conclusions, it's not too late to act on and reducing inequalities, but the time to act is now. And the reason we need to act now is because many of these inequalities that are manifesting now, they're not treatable by the policies we had of the past. They're manifesting themselves in intergenerational inequalities that will be much more difficult to address further down the line. And many of the policies that need to be addressed are fundamentally linked to our political economy systems, they're linked to our institutions, they're linked to our politics, issues that revolve around gender, issues that revolve around technology, issues that revolve around climate change. There are many perceptions which exist, which are polar opposites and often struggle to get the right discussion in the policy forums. So if we're realistically going to address these inequality issues, we must have these discussions about how to address these fundamental drivers of policy change that we're not having at the moment. And this requires governments to have many more discussions on the options to choose from. What are the priorities that they can work on? How do they choose the policy options from what is becoming a much more complex set of issues that are having to be addressed? But I would argue that at the centre of these discussions revolves around governance reform. issues, social policy and the way that we protect those that are vulnerable, not only those who are having low incomes, but how do we address vulnerable groups? How do we address gender issues in social protection systems which may not often be gender blind? How do we focus on issues of promoting inclusivity in the labour market? And some of these reforms are critical for the future. So to leave you, there are 5 policy reform areas that the report identifies. The first one is that we need to have a revolution in metrics. We need to use data and information much more effectively to address our policy choices. We need to be stronger in being able to use not only official data, but there's a whole bunch of new data that's coming available now, and how do we use this to inform our decisions making? Labour market inclusion, I spoke a little bit. We need to reform our labour markets and our public employment policies to reflect on the inclusivity perspectives. Currently, we see that jobless growth is a phenomenon across many countries, and if we focus on inclusivity, we have an opportunity to address some of these challenges that are currently being faced. Jobs of the future, I won't say any more about that, but there's a technological revolution coming which will influence many production processes. It won't be focused on national issues. It will be a global phenomenon where the developed world will be early advances, and I think that there's enough evidence now to suggest that many middle-income countries risk being left behind in this technological revolution that's coming unless they get on the trajectory of improving skills, supporting research and development. And so there's a big policy discussion around that. Certainly mobility is a big issue that affects Moldova, but not only Moldova, but other countries. How do we engage in the diaspora? How do we reflect on mobility and people that are working in jobs, and how do we work in the digital space to engage with those people? And finally, that investments in social services, social protection needs to be designed over the life cycle of the individual. It's a necessary part of dealing with some of these intergenerational inequalities that I've been talking about. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your attention. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Vă mulțumim, domnule Buma. Și pentru că pentru noi, pentru PNUD Moldova, contează opinia dumneavoastră și vrem nu numai să fiți prezenți, ci vrem să participați la evenimentul de astăzi, vă propunem un exercițiu interesant. Până colegii noștri vor deschide aplicația de care avem nevoie, vă spun eu ce urmează. Urmează să răspundem astăzi la 2 întrebări. Facem un sondaj chiar aici, cu voi. Întrebările sunt: care sunt declanșatorii inegalității în Moldova? Și a doua întrebare: dacă ai avea $100 pentru a contribui la dezvoltarea societății, pe ce i-ai investi? La a doua întrebare vom răspunde mai spre finalul evenimentului, iar la prima întrebare urmează să răspundem acum. Pentru aceasta aveți nevoie de telefoanele dumneavoastră. Și vom încerca să facem un test împreună, așadar ne scoatem telefoanele, intrăm pe browserul de internet, așa, și scriem slido.com. Așa, să mă dau mai într-o parte ca să reușim. Deci, așa cum vedeți, pe ecran aici aveți opțiunea. Ați reușit? Slido.com. Mai departe, trebuie să introducem un cod. Codul este J776. Avem nevoie de 1 minut? Avem nevoie de 1 minut. Dar noi suntem răbdători pentru că ne e interesant, nu? Să participăm la acest exercițiu. Eu cred că oricum până colegii noștri afișează pe ecran aplicația, pentru că noi pe ecran vom vedea rezultatele sondajului, putem noi să începem să facem sondajul și deja vor fi rezultatele pe ecran. Aha, deja ați votat. Foarte fain, pentru că eu n-am reușit încă să votez. Ia să vedem. Avem 3 opțiuni: salariile mici, accesul inegal la servicii publice de bază și disparitățile urban-rurale. Votez și eu și trimit rezultatul și vedem rezultatele afișate pe ecran. Pentru cei care nu au reușit încă, haideți să mai explicăm o dată procedura. Trebuie să intrați pe browserul de internet, să scrieți slido.com, codul de acces este J776 și aveți 3 variante, 3 opțiuni. Alegeți care este răspunsul care credeți dumneavoastră. Haideți să vedem. Toată lumea a votat? Mai avem nevoie de timp? Vă mai las 10 secunde? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Să vedem rezultatele. Așadar, răspunsul la întrebarea care sunt declanșatorii inegalității în Moldova. Avem 94 de persoane care au participat la sondaj și avem următoarele rezultate. Oamenii prezenți la evenimentul nostru cred că 37% sunt de vină salariile mici. 33% accesul inegal la servicii publice de bază. Iată, 38-32, pentru că acum avem 99 de oameni care au votat. Ia să vedem, suntem 100? Suntem 100. Și a treia opțiune, disparitățile urban-rural, 29% în acest moment. Înțeleg că majoritatea dintre cei care au votat, nu majoritatea, 39% dintre cei 100 care au participat la sondaj, cred că de vină sunt salariile mici pentru inegalitățile din Moldova. Salariile mici declanșează inegalitățile. Un astfel de exercițiu, dar cu mai puține probleme tehnice, vom face și în a doua parte a evenimentului. Sperăm că v-a plăcut acest exercițiu și noi continuăm evenimentul. Niște aplauze. Mulțumesc! Doamnelor și domnilor, în continuare o să vă rog să mai aplaudăm o dată pentru speakerii pe care i-am avut până în acest moment. Cei care au venit în fața dumneavoastră ne-au salutat și pentru domnul Buma, care ne-a prezentat concluziile și recomandările raportului. În continuare, o invit cu drag în fața dumneavoastră pe doamna Dima Al-Khatib, reprezentantă rezidentă PNUD Moldova, care va modera în continuare discuțiile pe baza raportului prezentat.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to see a lot of familiar and interested faces in the topic today. I'm very pleased to moderate this next session. We're going to zoom in on Moldova and discuss the topic of inequalities in Moldova. What we're going to do is we will have two elements of this session. First, we will present the finding of a local paper that we have produced as part of the work of the office led by our colleague Dumitru Vasilescu and a lot of contributors whom I would like to thank. So it would be a 5-minute presentation about inequalities in Moldova in the urban setting. And then I will invite my eminent panelists so we could have a discussion about the different dimensions of inequalities. So Dumitru, can you please start?
Bună ziua! Bună ziua! Bună ziua, stimați oaspeți, onorată asistență, mulți stimați colegi. O să fac această scurtă prezentare, într-adevăr 5 minute. Cum a spus doamna Al-Khatib, vreau în primul rând să mulțumesc contribuitorilor pentru această notă analitică prin care noi am încercat să localizăm unele din mesajele raportului global, de fapt pentru contextul nostru local. Și aș vrea totodată să menționez faptul că prin această notă analitică noi am încercat să mergem dincolo de prezent, dincolo de inegalitățile de venituri și dincolo de careva medii. Okay, I will switch to English from here onwards. First question, I think that we are trying to answer in our local paper. I think it's why inequalities really matter for Moldova, and I think we are mentioning and reflecting on at least 4 key elements. One is that Moldova is constantly losing from its human development due to inequalities. Only last year, in 2018, we lost around 10% of our human development due to inequalities, including inequalities of income, but also inequalities in access to education and health. That's one. The second element is that we are facing persistent, actually, inequalities in incomes, in between urban and rural, indeed. But when we zoomed into urban, we saw actually a very interesting fact is that actually income inequalities within urban, they are growing, and they're growing faster as compared to rural areas. Then we have also this cumulative effect of inequalities on human development and negative impact of inequality. Yeah, the cumulative negative impact of inequalities on human development, and in particular, as also mentioned already on the enhanced capabilities of people. And last but not least, we have something that we are starting actually to analyze in our paper is the emerging or the new forms of inequalities and new risks, particularly in the urban context. And particularly, we are also trying to project some of the future losses in terms of human development in both urban and rural Moldova. This paper is different because we are trying to use, as you can see, we are trying to use 3 types of data, if you wish. We are trying to use statistical data. We've collaborated a lot with National Bureau of Statistics on this. We are trying to use some of the big data, and we are particularly grateful for the support that was offered by private sector in Moldova on that. But also, last but not least, we are looking into the SIG data. We've used for the first time actually a set of new tools. We use micronarratives to understand perceptions of people around inequalities, how people feel about inequalities, and what are the solutions people think we can use in tackling inequalities. When it comes to income inequalities in the urban context, I think you can see it also from this nice chart. We have growing income inequalities in the urban context. People, particularly the most vulnerable and poor, they are heavily relying on pensions. They are relying on remittances, on other social benefits. We have accentuating risks of food and energy poverty in urban areas, particularly in Chișinău. And last but not least, we are seeing that there are specific groups of population that are particularly vulnerable in urban context. We are speaking about elderly, we are speaking about young families with kids, and last but not least, a group that is very, very, very vulnerable, that is around needs group, the youth that is not in employment or training in Moldova. Then, indeed, what is happening when it comes to inequalities in opportunities, so non-income inequalities? It is very important to mention that in the context of Chișinău, in capital city, the population is growing, and for the first time, I think throughout this paper, we are releasing also some projections over the growth of the number of population in Chisinau. We have basically 3 scenarios, as you can see here, but indeed we do expect for the next 5 to 6 to 7 years the population to grow, and together with this growth in population urbanization, there will be additional pressure on the existing already services in the municipality. For the first time, we tried also to use different new types of data to understand what is happening, for instance, in access to some of the services and some of the urban spaces of quality. Here you have an interesting visual that we developed together with the European Space Agency on the access of people within the urban context in Chisinau to public transportation services. We see that up to 50% of people living in Chisinau, for instance, they have access within 250 meters to the nearest public transportation station. Last but not least, also we are seeing some interesting unequal opportunities when it comes to dwelling conditions, right? We have around 18 or 20% of people in Chisinau that have access to less than 9 square meters per person, which is the minimum surface recommended. Well, then we have some also emerging risks of non-income opportunities. For instance, in these 2 areas that we are analyzing in our paper, it's in relation to mobility, urban mobility and access to electricity. On the left hand, you have the evolution of the consumption of electricity for the last 5 years. We have 2 visuals here from 2016-18. We have a continuous growth in electricity consumption in the city of around 4.55% on an annual basis, and this consumption is also, we see it as a not sustainable. There is need for some response to it, and I think also in the paper we have some policy recommendation on how we can tackle this problem in the urban context. On the other hand, again, based on some new data, we use mobility data from a telecom company in Moldova. We are seeing how monocentric is actually the city, right? And how this mobility, the urban mobility is a problem actually for Chisinau. So many people having to move from different districts to the city center to access jobs. Last but not least, I think I would like to also mention the fact that we use some thick data, some data on perceptions of people around what is happening in terms of inequality in urban and rural Moldova. Indeed, what we can see is maybe a bit pessimistic, yet I think from the stories that we've collected from people, we do see so many positive stories, right? Positive stories meaning people who find or found already some solutions to the inequality concerns or inequality problems. The most dissatisfied, I think, are people with transportation, education, civic engagement, safety and efficiency when it comes to using some of the utilities, water, energy, and so on. We have around 40% of respondents in general dissatisfied with what is happening now in terms of inequalities, particularly in the urban context. We have also only around 5% of people who have some visions for the future in their stories. And last but not least, I think something that is very interesting also for us to analyze further is the fact that so many respondents, they are mostly preoccupied about themselves in their stories and concerned only with their own needs. I would like to stop here, but indeed we are tackling many other interesting topics, access to education, to healthcare and so on, so we will be very happy then to discuss with you. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Ok. 30 de secunde, pauză tehnică. Puteți să mai mergeți prin sondajul nostru să vedeți ce rezultate sunt acolo. Poate între timp s-a mai schimbat ceva? Au mai votat oameni? 102 oameni. consideră în continuare că salariile mici sunt factorii declanșatori în Republica Moldova. Vă mulțumim foarte mult celor care ați participat la acest exercițiu și așteptăm cu nerăbdare să vedem care va fi răspunsul dumneavoastră la cea de-a doua întrebare. Desigur că uitându-ne pe ecran acum vedem că și ceilalți factori sunt suficient de importanți, pentru că din cei 102 care au participat, 28% consideră disparitățile urban-rurale și accesul inegal la servicii publice de bază, 31% sunt cei care spun că este un factor declanșator în Moldova. Așadar, pauza tehnică s-a terminat, eu v-am ținut de vorbă în acest timp și acum predau microfonul doamnei Alcativ.
Can anyone hear me with this? Yeah? Okay, very good. So, with this very rich background of the presentation of the Human Development Report findings, the specific notions about Moldova compared to some countries of the region, the findings of the paper that was presented by Dumitru. It gives us a good background to come to this next discussion, for which we have some eminent panelists with us today, and I would like to invite them on board. So we have with us two representatives from the Ministry of Health, Labor and Social Protection, Mr. Oleg Barkari and Mrs. Ala Ulyanovsky. They're not here. Yes, please, can I invite you? We do have with us Mrs. Anna Hakatsi, the World Bank country manager. We have with us Mrs. Simon Springet, our UN resident coordinator, Mr. Marco Gemmer, the head of the EU operations sections, the EU delegation and Moldova operations sections, Mr. Arkadie Barbarosi, the director of the Institute of Public Policy, and Mrs. Natalia Vladishevsko, coordinator of the Qualitative Studies Department at CBS Research. Thank you very much for being with us today. That's quite a big panel. And we're very happy for the commitment. This is going to be an interesting discussion, and hopefully with your engagement we can come up with some good insights about how to address inequalities from the different perspectives from the entities that you are heading, and maybe we can come up with some additional recommendations for Moldova that hopefully can be carried over by our national partners and counterparts. So let me start first with our colleagues from the Ministry of Health. Mrs. Oleg. Mr. Oleg. Yes, sorry. So we do know that monoparental families and those with many children are facing the highest poverty rates in Moldova. The elderly population are particularly at risk of poverty and multiple deprivations. Social assistance expenses are the lowest at the regional level, accounting for about 1% of the GDP. And we also know that there is a national program, the Ajutor Social, social help, which is considered one of the most targeted and relevant programs, but has a low coverage and requires some reconceptualization. So we would like to know from you, what are the current plans of the government and the Ministry of Health, Labor and Social Protection to redesign the Ajutor Social, and what are the policy options of the government to support social economic inclusion of the most vulnerable? We need a microphone. Here. Thank you. Sorry.
Mulțumesc pentru întrebare. Într-adevăr, ajutorul social este un program care a startat de aproximativ 10 ani.
Please go ahead.
Și este unul dintre cele mai bune programe în Europa de Sud-Est pe partea țintirii persoanelor și familiilor defavorizate. Avem foarte multe lucruri bune făcute, însă, într-adevăr, ca și acoperire, urmează să mai lucrăm, fiindcă în permanență statisticile arată că populația este în permanență schimbare. Și în cazul respectiv, vorbind despre o abordare pe viitor, într-adevăr, ultima perioadă, din anumite motive independente nouă, familiile cu copii au început să decadă. Poate că de vină este și migrația populației, însă cert este faptul că numărul familiilor cu copii este mai mic decât comparativ cu 5 ani în urmă. În schimb, a crescut substanțial numărul familiilor care au în componența lor persoane cu dizabilități și persoane în etate. Pe viitor, vorbind despre modificările care avem de gând să le efectuăm, desigur avem cele pe care le-am pornit acum un an, 2 în urmă, și este important să mergem în continuare, respectiv și să efectuăm modificări. De exemplu, avem deja o practică de indexare a acestui venit garantat de stat, care este aproximativ egal la un nivel de sărăcie extremă. Și în cazul respectiv, țintirea noastră este primele, practic 70%, este primele 2 chintile cele mai sărace ale populației. Deci, datorită indexării, noi susținem și menținem aceste categorii de persoane. Deci, pe viitor, în comun cu partenerii de dezvoltare, avem de gând să restructurăm un pic programul ca să includem mai mult familiile cu copii, mai ales familiile, cum a spus, și familiile monoparentale. Deci, și desigur, o altă parte este partea activă, adică trecerea de la un sistem de asistență socială pasiv, pur și simplu acordare de prestații, la unul de implicare a forței de muncă, și în cazul respectiv încercăm să implicăm familiile care au în componența lor persoane cu statut de șomer în căutarea activă a unui loc de muncă. Deci, practic, astea sunt trei priorități pentru viitorul apropiat.
Thank you, Mr. Oleg.
Welcome.
I'm going to direct a question to Anna from the World Bank. Anna, you know, Europe and Central Asia region is considered one of the most equal in the world. It's okay. No, I think that's fine. Yet countries in this region still experience various forms of inequalities, and these have an important cost on human development. Moldova, as mentioned earlier by the presentation that preceded, is losing approximately 10.4% of its human development annually due to inequalities. And according to a recent World Bank report, inequality across regions of Moldova increased over the past decade, also the welfare gap or divide between urban and rural areas is widening. Rural settlements are much less attractive as compared to urban, but Chisinau is by far the most attractive settlement. There's an issue of internal migration to the capital. The possibilities for rising inequalities within urban contexts are yet less analyzed, and municipalities lack the strategic vision and concept for tackling future inequalities, particularly the non-income ones. What are, in your opinion, the current drivers of income and non-income inequalities in Moldova? And what policy measures, in your opinion, are required to minimize the existing gaps and divide between urban and rural areas, as well as anticipate future growing inequalities, particularly in urban setups? That's a charged question.
Thank you very much, Dima. And first of all, I want to, say hello to the distinguished audience. And I think the high-level representation from different parts of the government shows the importance of authorities to the issue of human development. So, and also there are many representatives of the different development organizations, which also demonstrates our commitment to supporting the efforts to improve the lives of people here. And I think the organizers maybe eased my answer to the question that Dima posed through doing this interesting interactive survey of what we think are the main drivers of inequality. And we saw that the audience here, we all were asked to assess 3 different potential drivers, and we all here, 40% of us believe that it's salaries or inequality in how much people gain that is the main driver. And then we saw the graph there that showed that, for example, in urban areas, the salaries are much higher than what you get in rural areas. We also had a discussion right now about how social and fiscal policies then help to mitigate some of those disparities and through programs like Ajutor Social, but in addition to it through direct and indirect taxation, as well as through, for example, expenditures on health and education. These are different types of policies that the government is using in order to address some of the inequality issues, correct? And what is, I think, important then, it's really obvious that for income inequality, it is salaries. It's how much we are getting that matters. And if you look at income Gini, it's 48 points, so because we were told that 25 or almost like 26% Gini, which is the measurement of inequality, is a pretty interest and a kind of good outcome that Moldova has, and we were compared to 50 plus in Brazil, but there I think we were talking more about overall inequality. When you only take income inequality, it's much higher. In 2016, I think the numbers are that it's around 38. Once you add the social transfer, Ajutor Social, and pensions, most importantly pensions, you get to like 32%. And once you add education costs, the indirect direct taxation and health expenditures, that's where we get to 26% of inequality. So when we discuss that, we have to be mindful of that. And so then the question was, what are the drivers of non-income inequality? And in terms of non-income, there are different characteristics, and we can think about not really drivers, but more characteristics of what does it mean. And inequality of opportunity, it's basically can be, for example, measured as how can we get access to jobs? Do we get equal access to jobs? And what are things that may help us or position us better to get to that? And if you look at that, there was, for example, an EBRD transition report in 2016, and it identified 3 main characteristics of what could drive this non-income inequality. And there you see that it's parental education, it's urban and rural birthplace that defines your opportunity to get a better job, and then gender. So these were like 3 main ones. And for Europe and Central Asia region, it's parental education, level of education, that is the main defining factor of your opportunity, of the opportunity of the children in future. Whereas in Moldova, it's urban-rural disparity. It's only Moldova and Tajikistan where this factor features highest among like what drives the opportunities. And so I think it's an important important thing for us to think about, because 80% of poor today live in rural areas, and only 50% of non-poor live in those rural areas. So I think that the disparity is there. Earlier in the presentation, we were talking about this intergenerational divide and mobility. Unfortunately, since 70s, 80s, we see that mobility is deteriorating, which means that if a parent had higher education, their children have better chance to get good jobs and income in future. And that's, again, we need, I think, when we now discuss the policies, how do we address those kind of things, and the investment in education and making sure that, we can address access to quality education, continuing to look at, proactive labor market policies, policies that will support us, will support population with, social policies, protection. I think they are critical. And I mean, last thing, education and health. I think these are the main contributors to human development, and we can discuss that later, but I would stop here and then we can.
Thank you, Anna, for your insights. It definitely aligns with the previous discussion. I'm going to move to Marco. Marco, the European Union and Moldova is the largest trading partner and investor. In 2018, the EU countries accounted for more than 70% of the total exports and 56% of total trade of Moldova. The EU has consistently supported growth and job creation in the country through its development cooperation projects and initiatives. The EU provided to over 6,000 local enterprises in Moldova and helped to create around 3,000 new jobs. EU has also provided solid support in numerous areas, including modern transportation, roads, infrastructure, modernization of services, focused support on reform, and enhancing energy security, among many others. Also recently, the EU has launched a flagship program, which is the EU Focal Regions program, in partnerships with so many partners, including ourselves as UNDP. And the aim is actually to strengthen economic, territorial, and social cohesion in Moldova through facilitating inclusive, sustainable, and a more equal development. We would like to hear from you about the EU's new approach for development of the regions and the focal regions. And, if you could shed the light about what are the key elements of such an approach that would really result in the reduction of inequalities and enhance inclusions of those left behind.
Yeah. Thank you, Dima. And as you mentioned, I think everybody we are working with is in the room, from the UN family, the member states, the civil society organizations here. And when we talk about inequalities, especially the ones who are citizens who are less privileged than we are, because we walked in here, we see each other, we hear each other, we are already more privileged than maybe 90% of many other parts of the society. And I think the way we are approaching this development is to put really the people, the communities into the center. Before going into the Focal Regions program, I would like to say we work a lot with local action groups, because we have identified that there's a lot of knowledge in the local communities and a lot of solutions. What is missing is this initial funding to bring ideas on track, this initial platform to bring people together. There's a lot of local knowledge, but of course, like in most countries, there's not enough funding. So we can provide the funding for the initiatives that are there. Would this bring us the steep change? No. We always say incrementalism is innovation's worst enemy. So if you change stepwise, sometimes you have to think big. I think all of us, we enjoyed an university education in the 90s when we see now inequality because you don't have an access to the 5G network. When we were at the university, we were happy to have a computer, the 386 or something. So there's things where we have to be active in order to allow an infrastructure a thinking, an education that helps the societies to arrive somewhere in the future. Because if we ask people what they need, they will compare with their neighbors, they will compare with the cities. They don't compare themselves with people 5,000 kilometers away. And this is what we will do in the Focal Regions program. We want to connect the cities with the villages with the cities. There's a lot of knowledge sitting there that can be stimulated with small investments by bringing the right people together, and especially by empowering the local communities. Because the local communities normally know what is wrong or right. They know what they want. When we go to the local communities, they don't talk in big terms. They said, we want to have a good life and be healthy. And this is getting back, I think, to this thinking about inequalities. What else is needed in order to provide them this future or this perspective? Here it's about education, it's the infrastructure, connecting companies. You may have small producers who cannot grow because there's a transport link missing. If we continue making the mistake in thinking of providing development or assistance in sectors, we will maybe get one sector right, but we never get the ultimate objective right. Why do we have transport? Transport serves a purpose. This is what we try to do in our Focal Region program, that we bring all the different sectors together, starting by asking the people, what do you need? And there's so many things we can do immediately. And instead of coming with an academic exercise, say we need now 10 years to better understand the problem, we rather invest into getting the problems right that can be solved now, and then investing into the more smart specialization approach, the more innovative approach, where people may not immediately, I didn't think about 5G networks when I was a student, but somebody else was thinking for me. And I think this is exactly what we try to do here, to bring the innovation approach in there, to give the future for the ones who are not born yet, but at the same time solving the issues that are coming. We talk a lot about growth poles, about centers of gravity. In order to maybe explain Focal Regions approach in one sentence is, we want to bring the attention to one focal region, we bring the programming to one focal region, because we have not only the project implemented with the UNDP and UNICEF, we have projects in these regions implemented with UN Women, with our member states. We have co-funding from our member states to say we go to different regions at the same time to have also less transaction costs, but to get everything right to work along these 16 Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, also along our association agreement, the revised association agenda, the 20 deliverables for the Eastern Partnership, but all our programs support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals here in the Republic of Moldova. So we bring all these actors together to work with communities, and all of us have different strengths in the way we are programming, in the way we design our projects, and there should be something in for each and every citizen. This is why we decided to go into focal regions, to get it right there, then to expand the focal regions. And working in these two focal regions doesn't mean we are working there exclusively. This year we will make another 200 million lei available for civil society organizations to continue providing social services, to continue working with children of migrant workers that were left behind, working with elderly people who are often not in the discussion. We very much focus our discussion on the youth, but we also have an older population that has to be integrated, to work with people with less privileged start into life than we had. And I think this is where we continue working all over Moldova on inequalities, but especially with our partners on our focal regions approach. Împreună mai puternici.
Thank you, Marco. I think this is indeed a very interesting platform and showcase to show an integrated approach for development at the local level, which will be also an important platform to mainstream innovation and development solution at a different level. So, thank you. I'd like to move to Simon, the UN Resident Coordinator. Simon, in this context of the decreasing income inequalities in Moldova as measured by the Gini coefficient, and new forms of the non-income inequalities are emerging. And, you know, we're speaking about the inequalities in opportunities, the access to some vital public services, and equally persistent gender inequalities. And in such a context, can you please tell us, I mean, I am part of the UN family in Moldova, and we do have a wealth of knowledge and expertise within the UN family. We would like to know, what is the UN development system support to the government and to the national partners in Moldova in addressing such inequalities? How is this UN strategic development framework supporting these efforts to promote social inclusion of the most vulnerable groups of the population?
Thank you, Dima. And I also have to give a big thank you to Marco for highlighting the SDGs and their fundamental importance in supporting both development but also the government in addressing inequalities. And I think we would all agree that a deeper analysis of the multidimensional aspects of inequalities shows there are several challenges. Because on the one hand, we have the inequalities that are persistent, long-term, that we haven't addressed properly, either in our programs or in our long-term development plans, gender equality being one of these. And then we also have inequalities that are coming out of new technologies and larger megatrends, as mentioned briefly by Marco. And I think these new technologies and these new megatrends are creating additional inequalities. So while we might have had persistent inequalities in gender equality, we're finding it's only exacerbating these. So whether you have access to technology, whether you have access to, do online banking, etc., and these all affect different people differently. But I think, as Marco said, to address these inequalities does require shifting the historical paradigms between a conversation between development partners and government. These conversations have to be had with citizens. They have to be had at a local level. They have to be had with innovative startups, with academia, with universities. We're all in this together. We need all of the ideas possible to address these. And they also need to be addressed in a more transformative way. You don't simply deal with the gender machinery to deal with gender equalities, because gender equalities cut across every single line ministry. So as an example, using George's slide on gender equalities, the UN system is working on women's active engagement in political life, making sure that more women are running for local and regional and parliamentary office, and not only running, but being supported in delivering on their mandates as and when they are successful. Looking at more traditional issues of gender-based violence, but looking at aspects of that are cross-cutting. So it's about victim support, it's about stopping violence, it's about working with families. Strengthening efficiency and access to justice, so people do have recourse, and that recourse is accessible to men, women, boys, and girls. Access to sexual and reproductive health rights, and access to health care and education. So hopefully by working in this kind of a more multi-dimensional support across ministry and across agencies and with partners and with communities, we're able to attack the inequalities at many, many levels. And hopefully these will also have synergies across the development paradigm. So if you're working on gender, it doesn't mean that your focus and your impact also doesn't have an impact in climate change or education or in healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. It's perfectly also links to the interconnectivity also of the SDGs and how addressing one would also impact the other. Mr. Barbaroshi. So, thank you for joining us. And I know that since 2001, the Institute for Public Policy has been running a public opinion barometer, right? And from the recent surveys, the respondents think that reforms in the education system are not going in the right direction necessarily. So like 40% think that way, and some 30% think that it is going in the right direction, and some 25% they did not express, right? So I would like to know from you, what do you think, do you think that the educational system has the capacity to reinvent itself in Moldova?
Thank you. I'll answer in Romanian just because to have all my people to understand here.
Sure.
Dar nu știu dacă mai există lume care vorbește doar română aici. Este prima mea întrebare. Și a doua, există lume de la Ministerul Educației aici? Nu există. So, sorry, there are no people from Educational Ministry here. And there are no people which do not understand English, sorry. I'll try to speak a little bit about educational system. What are the problems with educational system actually? If you look in mass media, you can easily find those problems. First of all, there are a lot of very small schools which exist in the countryside and which politicians do not want to close down. Why politicians do not want? Because they are thinking only in terms of next parliamentary elections. That's all. They are not thinking about education, about helping people, about building them a kind of good houses with good closets. Sorry, but closets are still in the outside of the buildings. So this is a main problem. Next problem, let's ask us themselves, how many good lyceums do we have in Moldova? Good, I mean lyceums, which 25 at least people in the classroom, with at least 2 theoretical and 2 humanitarian classrooms, at least 2. And maybe this is just the most important thing, which are working and giving quality education. So, to my opinion, there are no such lyceums. Yes, there are some good lyceums in Chișinău municipality, which have at least 2 theoretical classes, at least 2 humanitarian, and there are, but in center of Rayon, only classes with 1 classroom in the lyceum, meaning is it theoretical, is it humanitarian, I don't know. So there are 9 people there. And so on. This is the most important thing. Second important thing is, how do you think the salaries for those people, are they enough? And my answer is not. They are not at all enough. Salaries should be good, at least 3 times more than today's salaries. People teaching in school should not be very many, but enough in order to give children very qualitative classrooms, in order to give them possibility to teach well, to study well, and in order to have them being responsible for the quality of education that they are delivering. So these are 2 problems, and now let's look at them as being tried to be solved by internal forces. Do you think this is possible? No, my question. Because without political implications, outside the system, the internal forces in the system cannot solve the problem. This is absolutely clear. My next point is that political forces should come to a conclusions. Do not touch educational system until it's reformed. Do not touch it for the next, say, 15, 20 years. Just do not touch it. Look at our system. So this is
my first things which I wanted to say is that internally could not be solved, but now externally. If politicians are coming, they should establish the 15, 20 years not touching the education. Secondly, they should change curriculum. If you have technological education 1 hour, or classroom education another hour, or etc. A lot of education which are not at all what kids need. What kids need is another point. Kids need more mathematics, more physics, more biology, or chemistry, first of all. Next, they would need more history. Thirdly, they would need Romanian language and English language, and that's it. They do not need any kind of more courses. Also, those courses should be moved to the second part of the day, which they are not compulsory. But those should be taught very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of messages there.
But whom?
Whom? To whom, you mean?
To whom, yeah.
To everybody. Everybody is listening to you. Mrs. Natalia, can you also elaborate a little bit on why is it important, in your opinion, to go beyond the income inequalities and beyond averages in Moldova?
Bună ziua, vă mulțumesc pentru întrebare. În primul rând vreau să reiterez încă o dată că inegalitatea în Republica Moldova este determinată în primul rând de sărăcia monetară, bazată pe diferența, pe inegalitățile între venituri. Este foarte important să vedem cum sunt calculați acești indicatori și dacă ne uităm că majoritatea indicatorilor prezentați de inegalitate, prezentați de Biroul Național de Statistică, care sunt calculați în baza bugetului gospodăriilor, cercetării bugetelor gospodăriilor casnice, ele valorifică atât ceea ce ține de venituri și consum și nu pot în niciun caz să reflecte în totalitate aspectele ce țin de accesul la servicii, acces de sănătate și de educație. De asemenea, alte aspecte ce țin de calitatea vieții. Aceste lucruri necesită a fi cercetate în studii dedicate și în abordări atât cantitative cât și calitative. Înainte de a trece la aspectele pe care o să le menționăm necesare fiind a fi calculate nu doar din perspectiva cantitativă, vreau să accentuez și provocarea în cercetarea bugetelor gospodăriilor casnice, ce se referă la area de cuprindere a grupurilor de populație și de refuzul gospodăriilor casnice, în special celor înstărite, și avem o rată cea mai înaltă de refuzuri de participare, de exemplu, în municipiul Chișinău. Deci, inegalitățile care se prezintă s-ar putea să nu cuprindă, într-adevăr, cele mai bogate gospodării din municipiul Chișinău. Totodată, trebuie să promovăm cumva spiritul civic pentru participarea în cadrul cercetărilor, fie că sunt realizate de instituțiile statului, fie că sunt realizate de centrele de sondare. Sunt țări, de exemplu, unde pentru anumite cercetări este obligatoriu participarea și atunci gospodăria care refuză această participare trebuie să achite anumite amenzi sau, dacă nu este convenabil la momentul dat, să reitereze atunci când va fi disponibilă participarea. Trebuie să promovăm spiritul de participare anume în cadrul cercetărilor dacă vrem să avem indicatori calculați care într-adevăr să reflecte situația. Un alt aspect ține de analiza datelor. Și aici, într-adevăr, mai ales când vorbim de inegalități, trebuie să depășim aspectul de medie. Și vă dau un simplu exemplu. Dacă ne uităm media pentru pensii, pentru limita de vârstă, pentru 2018 a fost în jur de 1600. Dacă luăm același indicator pentru media pensiilor pentru judecători, a fost de 27.000 și un pic. Adică vă imaginați această diferență enormă când trebuie să calculăm nu doar media generală, dar trebuie să ne uităm pe grupuri și subgrupuri care formează aceste categorii. Un alt aspect, și aici mai util ar fi, de exemplu, analiza în baza medianei, că atunci valorile extreme sunt lăsate într-o parte, dat fiind faptul că se prezintă, indiferent de valorile terminale, se prezintă media seriei, adică 50 situate deasupra și 50 de subtul șirului ordonat, fie crescător sau descrescător. Și am văzut aici, de asemenea, chentilele atunci când se utilizează foarte des și analiza celor mai 10%, celor mai bogați și celor mai săraci. Ceea ce ține de aspectele calitative, de ce trebuie să ne uităm după venituri? Pentru că sunt, de exemplu, infrastructura neadaptată pentru persoanele cu dizabilități. Indiferent de categoria social-economică din care face parte o persoană, de exemplu cu dizabilități locomotorii, va avea dificultăți în accesarea serviciilor și în accesul în diferite instituții publice. Și aici este o inegalitate bazată pe dizabilitate și nu pe venit. Sunt alte aspecte destul de răspândite în societatea din Republica Moldova, cum ar fi cumătrismul, care oferă acces foarte rapid și la diferite servicii medicale, servicii educaționale sau chiar angajarea persoanelor nu tocmai competente în diferite funcții. Și acesta este iarăși un aspect care trebuie să analizăm profund și să prezentăm inegalitățile care sunt raportate. Pe de altă parte, avem și grupuri care au reușit rezilienți la accesarea serviciilor. De exemplu, persoanele cu studii superioare și cele care au un nivel de informare mai înalt. Chiar dacă au venituri modeste, mulți din această categorie își pot cere drepturile și un exemplu elocvent în acest sens ar fi accesarea serviciilor medicale în baza poliței de asigurare medicală. În momentul în care persoana este informată, cunoaște că are dreptul la anumite consultații, că are dreptul la accesarea anumitor servicii, medicamente compensate, atunci poate, dacă este informată, să acceseze aceste servicii. Bine, că aici avem un alt component care de asemenea reflectă inegalitățile privind calitatea serviciilor. Și trebuie să menționăm că, într-adevăr, cei mai săraci uneori plătesc dublu. Și de ce? Pentru că, de exemplu, procurarea electrocasnicilor le va procura pe cele la mâna a doua pentru că nu își pot permite una nouă sau cele care sunt de o generație mai joasă și vor trebui să achite energia electrică mult mai scumpă. Sunt multe exemple pe care aș putea să le menționez. Noi avem nevoie de studii în care să vociferăm nu doar aspectele ce țin de veniturile monetare și de venituri, de sărăcia monetară. Și aici am să mă refer și la studiile pe care le-am realizat, anume ce ține de inegalitatea în municipiul Chișinău. Să știți că în orașul Chișinău trăiesc cei mai săraci oameni și cei mai bogați oameni. Adică discrepanța este cea mai mare anume în municipiul Chișinău. De ce? Pentru că aici sunt foarte multe oportunități educaționale, de petrecerea timpului liber, dar care costă. Și părinții, atunci când își aleg școala pentru copii, inclusiv pentru să-și dea copilul la o instituție publică, se axează anume pe aspectele acestea. Se interesează care vor fi plățile informale care vor trebui să fie achitate. Ori corupția la noi promovează și de fapt accentuează inegalitățile. Asta este una din cea mai mari probleme pe care trebuie să soluționăm în momentul în care vrem să reducem aceste inegalități. De asemenea, atunci când crește inegalitatea, avem grupuri care sunt discriminate, sunt etichetate și coeziunea socială dispare. În general, în orașele mari, distanța socială este mai mare, disponibilitatea de a se uni pentru rezolvarea comună a problemelor comune este mai mare și aici vedem o segregare după venituri esențială. Bogații relaționează cu bogații, săracii cu săracii. Încă doar câteva aspecte. Sigur că noi am identificat în municipiul Chișinău aspecte de inegalități privind veniturile, privind diferența pe gen, diferența pe vârste, după nivelul de studii, dar este important să accentuăm că sunt subiecte pe care ne afectează pe toți. De exemplu, transport public. Și nu vorbim doar de accesul la transport public, dar populația este foarte îngrijorată de condițiile și securitatea din transportul public. Vorbim aici inclusiv de aglomerarea, în perioada toți merg spre centrul Chișinăului. Discutăm despre microbuzele care sunt reutilate și multe alte aspecte. Inegalitatea de oportunități în Chișinău, de oportunități de angajare. În special sunt discriminați la angajare tinerii specialiști, anume care vor să se angajeze pe specialitate. Sunt discriminați persoanele care sunt la vârsta de prepensionare și mamele cu copii mici. Sigur că și alte categorii. O categorie dezavantajată la care s-a referit și antivorbitorii mei se referă la cei care au puțin spațiu în Chișinău, dar în special familiile tinere care nu au spațiu locativ. Chiria raportată la venituri este foarte mare ca aceștia să poată supraviețui și să aibă șansa să-și cumpere un spațiu locativ propriu. De aceea este important să vedem aceste aspecte. Sigur că putem discuta mult și asupra aspectelor de inegalitate privind migrația, care oferă, pe de o parte, avantaje financiare, dar pe de altă parte, emoțional, familiile sunt lăsate și bătrânii cu care am discutat, bătrânii singuratici spuneau că noi putem depăși inegalitățile de venituri, dar nu putem, ne este foarte greu să depășim cele ce ține de emoțional. Și atunci avem nevoie de servicii în acest domeniu. De asemenea, sunt aspecte ce ține de sărăcia celor care lucrează.
So, because we need to, you are really highlighting a lot of important points, and that would require definitely a much more in-depth discussion of those issues, those elements of inequalities that are extremely important, especially in the urban setup. I really appreciate that you're putting this on the table, and you are totally right in terms of the need to delve deeper into the data and the analysis in order to be able to quantify the gaps, and in order also for the ultimate aim of informing, hopefully, national policies and crafting, reforms that would really address those aspects. I know that I'm sure that there is a longer list, but you gave very concrete and very good examples of non-income and income-related, and especially for the ones who are sometimes forgotten and left behind, such as the elderly groups, people with disability, and special needs. Yeah.
Doar două aspecte foarte repede. Este important să studiem sărăcia celor care lucrează, pentru că avem o categorie enormă și vorbim de educatorii din grădinițe, vorbim de bucătarii din instituțiile preșcolare, adică avem o grupă de populație care, deși lucrează, ea este dezavantajată, și localitățile urbane mici, Acolo este o situație, pentru că noi ne axăm rural, urban, atunci vorbim de Chișinău, dar sunt localitățile rurale mici care se confruntă cu probleme destul de esențiale. Mulțumesc!
Thank you very much. The points that you raised will definitely be also the subject of further roundtable discussions that we will be hopefully organizing beyond the event today. So we definitely keep that in mind and keep you in mind as we move forward. So thank you for that. All right, so moving on with our panel, and this is a question to Mrs. Ala. I mean, several non-income inequalities were mentioned, and one of them is the health inequalities. We know that currently around 88% of the people in Moldova have compulsory medical insurance, and the system requires improvement in terms of coverage, but also in terms of quality of the included services. So we would like to know from you the perspective of the Ministry of Health, and what are the existing policy options that the ministry is adopting to increase the coverage of the compulsory medical insurance and access the most vulnerable to quality health services.
Da, vă mulțumesc mult. În primul rând, vă salut pe toți de partea Companiei Naționale de Asigurări în Medicină. Vă mulțumim pentru invitație la acest eveniment foarte util și important. Inițial aș menționa că fiecare persoană asigurată beneficiază de întreg spectru de servicii medicale care este inclus în programul unic la toate etapele de acordare a asistenței medicale, fie asistență urgentă prespitalicească, primară, specializată de ambulator, spitalicească. De asemenea, beneficiază de servicii de înaltă performanță, îngrijiri medicale la domiciliu și medicamente compensate. La fel și persoanele neasigurate, deci beneficiază de asistență medicală urgentă prespitalicească, de asistență medicală primară. Iar în cazurile când persoana neasigurată face una din maladiile social condiționate care prezintă risc major pentru sănătatea publică, ei de asemenea beneficiază de asistență medicală spitalicească și specializată de ambulator gratuit. Mă refer la persoanele neasigurate cu tuberculoză, HIV-SIDA, psihoze, dereglări mentale, unele maladii infecțioase. De asemenea, persoanele neasigurate beneficiază și de unele medicamente compensate, cum ar fi anticonvulsivante, antidepresante și antidiabetice. Vreau să vă spun că pentru a spori accesul persoanelor la servicii medicale, Compania Națională de Asigurări în Medicină, din fondul de bază, contractează așa numite cazuri cronice în toate spitalele din Republica Moldova. Deci aceste cazuri cronice înglobează cazuri de geriatrie, cazuri de îngrijiri paliative, cazuri de reabilitare. Cu atât mai mult, din fondul de bază sunt contractate așa numite programe speciale. Mă refer la acele intervenții chirurgicale care, dacă anterior se efectuau în municipiul Chișinău, poate mai puțin în Bălți sau Cahul, mă refer la acele intervenții chirurgicale, endoprotezări de șold, de genunchi, la intervențiile oftalmologice ce țin de cataractă. Acum, în spitalele raionale care au posibilitatea de a face astfel de investigații, cazurile acestea le sunt contractate. Dacă ne referim la serviciile medicale de înaltă performanță, să zicem rezonanță magnetică, tomografie computerizată sau unele investigații de laborator costisitoare, cu toții știm că prestatorii de astfel de serviciu preponderent sunt în municipiul Chișinău. În ultimul timp, așa prestatori apar și în localitățile din zona de nord sau de sud a țării, care la fel îi sunt contractați. Astfel, noi sporim accesul populației, deci nu să vină pacientul din nordul Moldovei în Chișinău, dar, spre exemplu, în același Iedineț sau Briceni, unde se prestează astfel de servicii. Cu atât mai mult, iarăși, pentru a spori accesul la îngrijiri medicale la domiciliu, Cu toții cunoaștem situația, hai să zicem, nu bună din medicină, lipsa de cadre medicale, mai ales în localitățile rurale. Și atunci când o organizație non-guvernamentală care prestează astfel de serviciu, îngrijiri medicale la domiciliu, compania națională o contractează iarăși pentru beneficiu pacienților din localitățile rurale. Din fondul de profilaxie, de asemenea, sunt finanțate așa proiecte de screening, deci depistarea precoce a cancerului mamar, care știm cu toții că cancerul mamar este în creștere, este pe unul din primele locuri, depistarea precoce a tuberculozei. Încă un moment care aș menționa, că în conformitate cu legea 1585 cu privire la asigurarea obligatorie de asistență medicală, compania are obligația de a evalua volumul, costul, calitatea serviciilor medicale, utilizarea eficientă a mijloacelor provenite din fondul de asigurări. Astfel, atunci când noi evaluăm prestatorii de servicii medicale care sunt încadrați în sistemul de asigurări, dacă ne referim la spital, în primul rând este evaluat asigurarea cu medicamente și consumabile, alimentația pacientilor, acele investigații care trebuie să fie efectuate în conformitate cu protocoalele clinice naționale sau instituționale. La fel și în asistența medicală primară sau specializată, accesul populației la serviciile paraclinice, la investigații de laborator, instrumentale, accesul populației la medicamente compensate. Toate acestea sunt evaluate în cadrul evaluărilor efectuate. Ceea ce ține de, să zicem că poate există un timp mai mult de așteptare în cadrul programării la un medic specialist sau la o investigație, iarăși ne ciocnim cu faptul lipsa cadrelor medicale. Însă, deci normele metodologice de aplicare a programului UNICU prevăd respectarea unor pași, adică inițial pacientul trebuie să se adreseze la medicul de familie, care este persoana de prim contact, după care la indicații medicale îi se eliberează bilet de trimitere, fie la medicul specialist, fie la unele investigații. Atunci când pacientul, el nu dorește să aștepte, deci el poate să se adreseze de sine stătător la un medic specialist, dar achită costul consultației în casa instituției respective. Deci cam, da, și ceea ce ține de informația populației, mi-a plăcut, doamna, ați menționat că populația trebuie să fie informată și deci noi atunci când contractăm instituțiile medicale, chiar obligatoriu, deci în condițiile contractuale, deci se specifică că la un loc vizibil trebuie să fie afișat tot de ce beneficiază pacienții noștri. În instituțiile farmaceutice, care iarăși le contractează compania, trebuie să fie iarăși afișată lista medicamentelor compensate. Deci, evident că urmează să ne mai perfectăm, pentru că nimic nu este perfect, dar numai de comun cu toți actorii, cred că vom atinge multe. Vă mulțumesc!
Thank you, and I think this point also of the lack of doctors is also one of the things that links also to the issues of inequalities related to migration and to the depletion of the professional capacity, but there's also a lot of other stuff to address from the health sector perspective. Very good. I know we've been taking more time than expected. There's three more or four more questions that I'd like also to hear the perspective of the colleagues on. I'd like to hear the perspective of Anna, given your experience and knowledge of the private sector. What do you think the role of the private sector could be in terms of contributing or reducing inequalities in Moldova?
I think the short answer is jobs, and better paid jobs, and jobs that provide social packages. I think it's also probably increasing the corporate social responsibility programs. We already see many companies investing into corporate social responsibility programs that either support social, educational, innovation, research, and that then bears the results. Majority of those companies today are foreign-owned. They bring international best practice experience, this corporate social responsibility, CSR. They invest into their own stuff. They provide growing opportunities. But we already also see locally owned companies engaging in very interesting activities. And I think expansion of that will be important. To that end, I think dual education is something that is critical. So if we all agree that better paid salaries, access to jobs is what differentiates a person's opportunity, so-called, then I think one way to support people is to prepare them for the labor market needs of today and of tomorrow. Same goes to, I think, we discussed a lot education. It's about quality. It's about also relevance to labor market. This is what we need to be thinking about. But also, I think public sector needs to provide incentives for private sector to do this kind of things. For example, the bank worked with the authorities on developing a package of laws around apprenticeship and dual education. But these are not yet adopted. So whatever companies do today, it's more of their kind of goodwill rather than necessarily having a balanced set of incentives that they will have. Same, we see that student performance, for example, in private school for kids in reading. We recently saw PISA results for Moldova. Private schools do better in terms of teaching kids to read. How can public sector learn from that, and what kind of standards public sector schools could aim at, and what is needed for that? What kind of reforms are needed? What kind of curriculum changes, investments in teacher capacity building will be required? I think these are all considerations. Today we invest a lot into this sector. It's not that we are not investing enough, but the way we spend money, the efficiency of public spending is not always optimal, and we have to think how to improve that, how to learn from private sector, but also incentivize private sector to do their job.
Indeed. I don't know whether we have some of the private sector companies with us today, but we have the experience of collaborating with the private sector beyond the CSR approach, and they have been an active driver in coming up with development solutions that are, some of which are now at the stage of being seriously considered for scaling up. So is Orange with us today? No?
They are powering this event.
Yeah, they're powering this. Okay. Okay. All right. Marco, can you give us your perspective on the private sector engagement, especially with the folk region? I want to go back to that. I know you spoke about the inclusion and engagement, but if you could shed the light on the private sector, it would be...
I think, like in any program, the private sector is very important to have in for a healthy dialogue. There's a lot of knowledge in the private sector. If there's opportunities, the private sector will grow. The private sector will not decide not to grow. And I think it's very important to have private sector in any discussions, because there's many ideas. We provide a lot of seed funding, scale-up funding, access to finance for SMEs. But very often, sometimes, the small road is missing to enable them increasing their potential for a bigger market, for instance. So this is why it's important when we talk about structural weaknesses. I don't need the letter anyway. I say what I want. That's a good thing, being with friends. Very often, when we talk about structural weaknesses, private sector is not heard. And exactly these investments into infrastructure, into access, into education is not done if they are not part. This is why we think that the private sector is one of the most important elements to have a healthy dialogue. Of course, the local communities, then the local public authorities, in order to be able to make additional funding available. And then a healthy dialogue also with the central authorities.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Simon, I mean, the UN system commitment to social justice takes multiple form. Today we are celebrating the World Justice, the World Day of Social Justice, under the theme of closing the inequalities gap to achieve social justice. Can you shed the light on the UN development system efforts to support social justice in Moldova in terms of initiatives or commitments that promote further integration of the country, for example, into the global ecosystem?
Okay, well, thank you, Dima. I think as all of the panelists have clearly shown already, and as well as many of the colleagues from the various sectors, there's no shortage of knowledge, there's no shortage of ideas, and there's certainly no shortage of policy options, though Anna makes a very strong point about how we make certain budget and financing decisions. I think Moldova and our team is very lucky in that we have 24 UN agencies that actually have some engagement in Moldova, and we're exceptionally fortunate to have 14 agencies that are physically present here. And we're all working to place a special emphasis on addressing the needs of the poorest and most vulnerable, and to be sure that we don't leave anyone behind. And I think, as you raised and as others raised, data is really the biggest key. And what we're, I think, really missing is, well, there are some data issues, but the largest data issue that I see currently is that, we're really missing disaggregated poverty data to really understand the poverty profile of the country. Because we do struggle to develop evidence-based policies, even if we have a lot of ideas and we can bring in policies and ideas from other countries and pull in global knowledge. We still need that core data to be able to make informed decisions and to make decisions on where and importantly where not to spend money. One of the things that we're doing is we're working with the National Bureau of Statistics to produce better and more accurate disaggregated data, and looking also at vulnerabilities. And as I've just recently said, we need quality and accessible and timely data. Another thing we did with the National Bureau of Statistics was to look at the Sustainable Development Goals and to nationalize those indicators. And one of the things we're doing with that data is we're working with the State Chancellery to do the first ever voluntary national review in the Republic of Moldova. And this is important because it's not simply a stock take. Here's where we are in 5 years. We have 10 years left to deliver collectively, globally, the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have a decade of action to really work together to pull this through. And hopefully the voluntary national review will not only highlight successes that Moldova can bring to New York and to share with the world, but also importantly to highlight some of the weaknesses and where we can do better, both collectively, individually, as government, as civil society, and as communities. And we're also working with the State Chancellery to finalize the Moldova 2030. So the strategic vision that has gone through several iterations through 3 governments since I think it was finally in its final draft in November 2018. And we hope that will be delivered by the Prime Minister to Parliament sometime within the next, I'd say, 15 days. And hopefully that will remove us from an area where we have 30 sectoral strategies that are not necessarily interlinked into one more global arching one that we can all use to create a dialogue around. The strategy is not necessarily going to tell us what to do, but it's hopefully going to help us guide the questions when we speak to communities, when we speak to lawmakers, when we speak to parliaments. So in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to achieve. We're going through a reform like many other countries, and our reform is aimed to make sure that we take these ideas and that we effectively deliver them as a collective of the UN. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. I do have a final, maybe we did not address quite well in this discussion the issues of climate change. So I understand that we do have with us an environment specialist, Mr. Andre Isaac. Is he here? Yes, very good. So, I mean, we all know that climate change is a universal phenomena and has a negative impact on sustainable development in any country, Moldova being one of them. This is definitely well acknowledged in our 2019 Human Development Report. We would like to hear from you, how does the climate change affect human development in Moldova? And what types of inequalities people of Moldova are facing when it comes to environment and climate change, in your opinion?
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate first UNDP with launching of this report globally and here in Moldova, and having this focus beyond income, beyond average and beyond today. And if we're going beyond all this, we fit in the environmental quality. And we fit in the needs of this country to adapt it to the impact of climate change. Because we will lose a lot in economic growth, in human development, if we did not take appropriate measures of climate change adaptations already now, because we stick our growth in the country or development of key sectors with this. And I think it doesn't matter what income you have or what level of education or what car you are driving, you are hit by pollution. You will face the consequences of climate change, and you will need to invest yourself, as the society will have to invest to adapt to the climate change. And here we have the needs to improve the quality of environmental factors. It's like biodiversity, like water quality, to reduce pollution, because all this result in human health, all this result in cost, both to the people and to the government to address these challenges. And then more inequalities are coming in front of us, because more poor people, they could less address the impacts of environment or impacts of climate change on their business. Or, I mean, a small farmer will not be able to deal with this if he don't have enough money. Or I think here in the capital city, either you are prime minister or you are UNDP or you are a simple person, you have the same 3 times or 4 times air pollution limits being not respected daily. So it doesn't matter. These are consequences which we face everybody, and then it comes to, we could count the monetary, and these losses for the society are quite high. We are not have sometimes even very precise data what kind of losses have either the government or the society at whole due to impact of climate change or environmental pollution. So I think this have to be properly addressed. I mentioned a few of them, that it's air pollution, that air quality. Even one of the issues which we have in the report, and it is mentioned, this is access to green areas, to recreation. This is another point, because people sometimes could not afford themselves going to islands to recreate. They go to nearby square, but there is air pollution, or this is noise, or this is PMs around, and so on. So this is an issue which have to be addressed from all points of view. And then, of course, it comes to more vulnerable and more bigger difference between rural and urban, and if we have to solve other problems related to improving or enforcing maybe legislation, not improving because it's in the place, that enforcing legislation related to old cars, related to discharges, related to authorizations and permissions and so on. So thank you very much. We could go in a separate discussion on this issue, but thank you very much to take into account climate change and environment towards this human development in Moldova, because this is really having an impact on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Let me reiterate the importance of climate change and the importance of addressing this issue not only from an adaptation perspective, but also at the policy level, but maybe having kind of a longer term vision also on how to address sustainable energy in the country. one of the key elements that should be also addressed in Moldova. At the end of this panel discussion, I want to thank really each and every one for giving your insights and perspective. I think you have echoed very, very important and valid points that that needs to be further taken in terms of our discussions, whether individually or collectively with the different counterparts, through our programmatic activities and with the government. Thank you, Ministry of Health, for being with us, and thank you everyone. And we will definitely keep you posted with upcoming roundtable discussions. Please join us with having some coffee break, and we take it from there. Thank you very much.
Mai avem al doilea sondaj. Probabil că eu trebuie să stau aici, așa. Toți cei care, chiar dacă acum beți cafeaua sau vă serviți ceaiul, noi vă rugăm mult să iarăși să reveniți la telefoanele voastre mobile, pentru că suntem curioși și insistăm ca să vedem părerea voastră și la următoarea întrebare. Așa, deci avem întrebarea. Toată lumea știe cum să intre, da? Deci slido.com, avem codul G776 și iată că am văzut că 3 deja au votat. Așa, dacă ai avea $100 pentru a contribui la dezvoltarea societății, pe ce i-ai investi? Și avem 3 variante de răspuns: abordarea schimbării climatice, sistemul de învățământ, sistemul de sănătate. Vă invităm să votați mai activ. Eu nu tac până nu văd că votează toți. Abia 22 de participanți la sondaj. Haideți să votez și eu. Să fie corect, să participe toată lumea. Ia să vedem pentru ce ar da banii participanții la evenimentul de astăzi. Așadar, eu de asemenea am votat. Avem 46 de participanți în acest moment la sondaj și în continuare sistemul de învățământ este pe primul loc cu 41% dintre cei care au participat. Iată, 43, 47 de participanți. Haideți să vedem, 49. Mă simt ca la o licitație. Hai să fim 50 și vă las în pace. Cine ia al 50-lea? Avem. Ok. Pe ecran rezultatele vor rămâne afișate, astfel încât cei care votează în continuare să poată vedea rezultatul în timp ce serviți un ceai și o cafea. Eu vă reamintesc că raportul de dezvoltare umană îl găsiți pe adresa electronică hdr.undp.org și de asemenea vă aduc aminte că evenimentul de astăzi este organizat de PNUD Moldova. Vă mulțumim și vă dorim în continuare o după-amiază plăcută.